Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of Arrow. Like I said with Flash, I'll say it again with Arrow. I'm super excited to have Arrow back. This was a very good episode. It kind of like, the whole tone of it kind of heavily reminded me of season 1. Just the fact is that you kind of that darker, gritty, like a little bloodier aspect to Arrow, just when he was back killing everyone, which he did in this episode. I love how he kind of was justifying. He's like, I can't have anyone knowing my secret. It's like, I understood some levels of what he was talking about, because it's like, well, because if people see that Oliver Queen can kind of kick some ass, maybe people kind of go back to think like, oh, he might be the Green Arrow. I mean, he's kind of already been through that before. He had to deal with that in the first season. Came back up the bite him in the ass in season 3. So wouldn't want to kind of reopen that wound again. So, but at the same time, it's kind of like the question is, would people actually jump to that conclusion? Maybe most people are like, nah, he's just, he's in a powerful position. He's just a rich dude, so he decided to take self-defense lessons, type of thing. I don't know. But that was kind of an interesting thing in this episode, that it wasn't just killing those dudes, which that played a big part of it. Because I love the whole fact of like Thea being like, you killed those guys. Because basically Thea's kind of like, she's like, I can't go back to it. I wanted a normal life and I can't go back to that. Which there's a part of me that's like, there's that part of me that's just part of my brain is like, oh, you're so freaking selfish. Like, Oliver, you see your brother struggling with this whole situation. Why won't you help him out? You're literally the only person that's around. John's gone. So it's like, she's super reluctant to help him. The only reason why she decided to suit up at all in this episode was because of Lance. Like, I get it. Like I said, there's that part of my brain thinking that, but there's the other side of me. It's like, Thea's been through a lot, and she doesn't want to be a killer anymore. She doesn't want to be a vigilante. She wants to see that I can just be away from this. Oliver kind of doesn't really have a choice in the matter, because it's like, everything he experienced on Lian Yu forged him to be who he is. He can never go back to being the Oliver he originally was. And it makes you wonder, would that be something Thea will have to ultimately face? Will she never be able to go back? I mean, considering who your dad is, it seems like you could never have a normal life. I mean, just like Oliver's experience on Lian Yu made it so the Green Arrow isn't just a part of it's not just something, a simple mask he can put on and take off. It is an essential part of him. It has become a part of him since he went to Lian Yu. Like, since all that happened, it became a part of him. So maybe, I mean, whether you like it or not, Malcolm is part of her life. He is genetically part of her. So, and the fact is, your dad's never going to let you have a normal life, because he's always going to want to implant himself in your life, which will always suck, because his way of like always protecting you basically means screwing over everyone else around him. That's why he went through with the Genesis plan, because it's like, let the world burn, just make sure that me and my daughter are safe. It's like, she might hate me and whatnot, but I'm still doing this for her sake, because the world needs to be reset. Because obviously what happened to his wife and everything, and it just kind of changed his perspective. It's like, he was a nice guy to begin with, but the loss of his wife just kind of drove him insane, essentially. So like I said, it's just kind of interesting, that conflicting ideas. Like, she's like, you're up here killing people. Like, I'm not about to be a part of that. I stopped being a vigilante because I was scared about that part. I mean, really, she doesn't have to worry about the bloodlust aspect, because Damien and Dark kind of took that from her last season. So, but still, I think that makes her very hesitant to suit up, even shoot an arrow, because she's scared she's going to hurt someone. But she's like, Oliver, you're killing people. Laurel wouldn't want you to do this. And essentially, his explanation for it is like, I'm doing this because of Laurel. I had multiple opportunities to kill Dark. I didn't, trying to take the higher roads. And you know what that did? That ended up with Laurel dying. I mean, granted, because in the end of the day, he ended up killing Dark anyway, but I guess like he felt like there was no other choice, because like, I have to kill you, because it's like you were literally locked up, and that wasn't enough to stop you. You're too much of a tyrant. There's always a chance that you might kind of come back and just, you're so set on his Genesis plan. Who's to say you won't find another way to kind of set it off again? So, but his reasoning behind it, it's like, you also understand that. You're like, it sucks, because Oliver's worked so hard. Like, he hasn't, like, his last time really killing a lot of people was in season 1. But after Tommy died, he decided, he's like, no, I want to be a better person. I want to be the person that, my best friend could be proud of. And, especially like in the case of Laurel, but it's like, cause in his mind, he's like, he wants to be the better person for Laurel, but he doesn't want to take the chance that his inaction, his inability to kill someone could end up leading to someone he cares about dying later on. So it's like, you get the ideas. It's kind of like the same thing with Thea and her not wanting to suit up. It's like, there's conflicting ideas. I don't want Oliver to kill, but at the same time, I understand why he would feel the need to. Because I was wondering, like, because he used that as an excuse, saying like, "Oh, couldn't have them learning his secret." So I was like, is that good enough reason to be killing all these people? And I'm surprised because I was wondering. I was like, "Oh, Thea's not gonna say anything." He just like snapped dudes' necks or putting bullets in them like it was nothing. Walked away, had some blood on him. It's just like there's no reaction from him. He seems very unapologetic. Even when he went up against Anarchy at the very beginning of the episode, he shot an arrow, like put an arrow in his hands to kind of, rather than like using like zip tie, like his arrows to kind of wrap up his hands or something like that. He just literally just put an arrow through his hands and then knocked him out. And then there's the person that they refer to as Wild Dog, Felicity and Curtis call him that, but he tried to help out Oliver. I mean, this is our first time seeing this episode, but Oliver's come across him before, and he's like, "Yo, stay back, mind your own business. This is my fight, not yours." And basically puts an arrow in his leg just to prove a point, like, "Don't ever let me see you again." So it's kind of like that. The moment I saw that beginning, like that whole thing kind of set the tone of the episode of like, whoa, Oliver's going a little dark here, isn't he? It's like, holy crap. I mean, it's understandable, like, because Oliver's entire world fell apart at the end of season 4. Season 4, basically, everything went wrong for Oliver. He's no longer with Felicity. John left. Thea left. I mean, Thea's back. She seems like she's in a position to just be his advisor, but he's still handling everything on his own. Felicity the entire time is telling him, you need to form a team, like things, but he's reluctant to, like, in his words, because he's hoping so much that John and Thea will change their mind and come back. But, as the episode progresses, he kind of finally realizes, like, Felicity was right. They're not coming back at all. And it's really sad because he brings up his reason, and it's a pretty obvious reason why he wanted to get people involved. Because one, it's like, I don't want to get these people involved because it's like, this is a very line of work, and he doesn't want to put someone he doesn't really know through like something that could be very dangerous. But at the same time, it's not simply just that. It's also because of the fact is that obviously his team, it's more than just like, people he works with. Obviously you have Thea being his sister, but also because John is like a brother to him. So it's his family. So you're not going to be willing to replace your family, especially people you've been through so much with that you trust with your life. And it's a combination of that, plus the fact is that it was his normalcy. It kept him grounded, and kind of without them, I guess he feels kind of like he's spiraling a little bit, because he's holding on hope that everything will go back to the way it was, because to him everything was fine the way it was. But sadly, that wasn't the case for everyone. That's why everyone left, because they have their own things. It's kind of like, I need to be away from the team. I need to figure me out, essentially. So, and speaking of the whole, like, forming a new team thing, once again, another thing, like, I should not have watched the trailers for this season. I guess you could kind of theorize that's what was going to happen at the end when you see that Team Arrow is kind of broken. It doesn't bring up the question of, will Team Arrow ever, like, OG Team Arrow come together? I mean, when you look at everything that happened in the last season, losing Laurel and just everything that they went through, John killing his own brother, Thea dealing with the whole fact of being a killer, essentially becoming a lot like her dad, and a lot more like him than she'd ever want to be or want to admit. So, they needed the time away, it's just like they felt like they couldn't move on if they stayed with Team Arrow. So it makes you wonder, will they ever come back? I get the feeling maybe, I don't know, maybe they'll combine with the new Team Arrow. But getting back to what I was saying, it's like, I kind of got that spoiled for me. Like, I already know who the faces of new Team Arrow are, at least so far, because Curtis kind of brings it up in the episode that he wants to be a part of it. We've got the person they refer to as Wild Dog, and they've also got the girl from last season who took up the mantle of Black Canary, which in this episode, interestingly enough, we kind of got Laurel's perspective on that conversation she had with Oliver. One thing she was saying is, don't let the Black Canary kind of die with me, let the kind of torch be passed on, because it to be a symbol of like not giving up, because he even had a statue made of Laura to kind of commemorate her, kind of a symbol that, in his words, if they come together, they can accomplish anything. It's like not be afraid to stand up and fight for what you want to believe and fight for what you want to protect. So, and he actually talked to Diggle in this episode, but more so than anything, he was kind of hoping Diggle would tell him, it's like, nah, don't form a new team because we're going to be back to the way we were before. But he already knew that Diggle was going to say starting a new team is a good idea. For him, it was like he already knew what needed to happen. He just needed reinsurance. He was hoping Diggle would probably talk him out of it, but he's like, he already knew what Diggle was going to say. It's just he kind of needed to hear it, so from him himself. So another interesting thing brought up this episode was the whole situation about Oliver being mayor. It's very weird and interesting to see him as mayor. You already saw kind of the struggles of balancing being Oliver Queen with being, the vigilante or Arrow, which, who he was in the past season. So it's kind of like, it makes, how much of a tough job that was. I mean, to a certain extent, it's like, most people didn't really expect too much about Oliver Queen. So it's kind of like he could kind of go and do as he pleases somewhat. Because no one would even think, really, it's like, oh, Playboy, Oliver Queen. Yeah, he's been going all these years, but obviously he's still the same. There's no way he could be some superhero type of situation. So, but it's very interesting balancing that life. It always seemed like it was pretty tough to begin with, especially, because it interfered with a lot of aspects of life. In particular, like eventually when he kind of took over the Queen family business, like it kind of interfered there. And that eventually led to like his company basically being taken from him. But then also, now that he's in a position of being mayor and he has to kind of balance that, he brought up a very interesting perspective in this episode. Like, well, a conversation between him and Thea. The fact is that he's not taking his mayor duties as seriously as he is his vigilante duties. Because for him, now being mayor is nothing more than a disguise. It allows him to get good intel, be kind of the first to, get some information that he could use as the Green Arrow. But, initially he campaigned for this position because he wanted to be able to help the city in a way he wouldn't be able to as Green Arrow. The kind of fight out in the light instead of the dark as, the Green Arrow does, no longer hiding in the shadows. I mean, that's kind of why he created the Green Arrow persona anyway, was for a hero to kind of be out in the light and not necessarily hidden away in the darkness. But even so, there are still things he can only accomplish as Oliver Queen that he won't be able to do as the Green Arrow. So that's what his hope was for the job. But now he's kind of treating the job as if it was the disguise, kind of like how he was in the beginnings, like treating Oliver Queen as the disguise and that the vigilante was the real him. And so he is kind of taking on this new position as mayor, like a little more. It's not that he wasn't serious about it, but now he's no longer looking at it as a disguise. He realizes the importance of being the mayor. I mean, because you do see a different side of him as a mayor, because he was very blunt in this episode, being like, yeah, the police are corrupt, which, there's system, like, there's cops in the show that are corrupt. We kind of saw that in this episode, but, he was just kind of bluntly saying it at a party that was basically celebrating this new team that's being formed, an anti-crime team, and Oliver's basically like, he knows that there's a lot of corruption within the police, but these are police officers he trusts, and he's going to form this team, and they're basically going to bring back peace, essentially, to Star City. Because for a second there, I was talking about, the Queen business and whatnot, and I was wondering, I was like, oh yeah, whatever happened to that? Isn't Felicity still taking over? And then it clicked on me. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. The board members kicked her out just because she was balancing her responsibilities as Team Arrow as well as her businesses there, and she couldn't really outright explain to people what she was doing, so they basically kicked her out. So it does make you wonder where things will go. I'm trying to remember. I keep calling it a Queen business. I can't remember what it's called. Is it called Queen Consolidation? I think so, or Queen Industries. I don't remember what it's actually called. I do remember in that episode of Legends of Tomorrow when they went to Star City. What was in 2046, wasn't it? Basically, the building was known as Smoke, industries or whatever. So maybe that's kind of bringing up the possibility that Felicity will eventually take back over the reins. It does make you wonder if that's going to play a part in this season, and I'm sure it will. The villain in this episode, his name is Tobias Church, who I know as I know the actor as Tyrese from The Walking Dead. Seems like a very scary dude. The way he just beat that cop down and just like pulled out those knuckles and started beating him down. That was pretty crazy. He's not, it doesn't seem like he's going to be our main antagonist, but he does seem like he's going to be a big one because it seems like he's bringing all of the crime groups together underneath him because he's like, in just a small amount of time I've been here in Star City, I've already infiltrated your organization. And that guy was like, what do you mean by that? He's like, I mean by this. And one of the guys behind one of the kind of bosses that was in front of him got shot. I was like, oh, crap. So that was kind of interesting. Like I said, like, I don't know why. Like, to me, the tone of this season so far seems like it might be a little closer to season one's in that, like we're getting a little bit of Oliver, when that was him first returning after being on Lian Yu, well, after everything he went through in the 5 years. I mean, because he didn't exactly spend all 5 years on Lian Yu like we kind of thought. So, we've learned as the series has progressed. But, this episode just, I don't know, like, it just had that darker feel to it like the first season definitely did. And I really liked how, it felt like they really kicked things up this season so far, and like how like the whole like the bomb is going off, he's jumping out the building, and midway through like he shoots an arrow into the helicopter while the building is exploding. That was freaking sick. And then he's fighting Tobias on the helicopter. Tobias kind of knocks him out, and he shoots an arrow that has a parachute in it, which I'm not remembering that incorrectly. That's the first time he's used something like that, right? Like, because I brought that up before because I've heard other people bring it up. Like, when is Oliver going to have, like, those weird arrows? Like, the go-to one is always, like, the arrow with the punch glove. Like, it's like, will we see more stuff like that in this season? Or, because I feel like that's the type of thing that they don't know how to really necessarily make it practical. Because if they did something like that, it most likely would be, like, a one-off thing. It'd be like, yep, it just happened one time. It's kind of a throwaway arrow joke. Green arrow joke. Because I don't think it'd be practical, and I feel like it, might be, if he did it, I think it'd be a little too silly for the tone of the show. So I think that would kind of backlash a little bit. So I mean, I don't know. I still think it'd be cool. I'm literally waiting for a punch glove arrow. I'm just waiting for it because it's one of the few things. Prior to Smallville, it's one of the few things I knew about Green Arrows, particularly before I rewatched Smallville, like last year or whatever is what I'm talking about. So it's like, it's one of the few things, like I know he has like weird arrows. Like we've seen it more and more because like he has arrows that kind of help Felicity with her whole like hacking into things stuff. So, and also in this episode, I mean, like I said, like I've kind of explained, like I've said, I haven't going over everyone because I cannot forget what happens with Detective Lance. It seems like life is kind of falling apart for him. He's drinking again. He's back in Star City. He's been back for weeks. He hasn't let anyone know. Turns out him and Donna broke up. Don't know why. I mean, I'm sure I know why. Like I know one major complaint people had with last season was people didn't like Felicity's mom, the character. So maybe this is their way of getting her out of the picture. It's like I don't care. Like she was not the annoyance people make her out to be, at least to me. Like, I liked her character, I liked her story, her part to play and everything, just because it was like added a different side to Felicity, kind of seeing where she came from, who she was. I know that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people won't agree with me on that, and it's fine. That's how this whole thing works. So, but I didn't have a big problem. I get the feeling that might be the thing. Or, maybe legitimately the actress just went off and do other stuff so she doesn't have time to be an arrow. So, But her and Lance broke up and he's back to drinking because it's like, well, he has nothing now. He's lost Laurel. I mean, Sarah's back, yeah, but she's off time traveling trying to, save the future. So doesn't have her around. And his girlfriend lost her, so he really doesn't have much. Being at that memorial for Laurel and talking to Oliver, listening to his speech, it kind of got him inspired. That's what kind of got Lance to kind of inspire Thea to kind of suit up again, even if it was only momentarily. So, and since I am talking about Thea again, I am curious, like, will we get like a Red Arrow slash Speedy slash Arsenal? Because I know Roy was kind of Arsenal, so I can't, because I know every time he talks to Thea, he just refers to her Speedy because that's his nickname for her, which I thought that was kind of interesting, like, just because my own experience of like Young Justice and whatnot is like I know that he constantly called Red Arrow, well, Arsenal Speedy, so I was just like, and which he didn't appreciate that, but in this it was because like that was the nickname Oliver gave Thea, and Thea gave it to Roy. But the question is, like, I'm curious, like, will there ever be like a replacement, or will she eventually come back to fill that role? Just like we got a different Black Canary, where we get a different Arsenal. I mean, there's always the possibility that maybe Roy will come back. I mean, I don't know in what position. Will it be like a full-time thing or a short-lived thing? It was kind of a short-lived thing last season. Well, I mean, granted, he can't come back. I keep forgetting about that. I mean, he could pop up every once in a while, but I forgot. Like, he's supposed to be dead because everyone thinks he died back in season 3. So, his like, oh yeah, it made everyone think that the Arrow was killed, the vigilante, so that the Green Arrow could rise now. So, and then finally, we ended up finding out about Felicity, because of constant thing, something that John kind of brought up this episode. It's not something actually Oliver hasn't brought up. I guess it's just after all this time they've been working together, just kind of the small team that they are. Maybe it's just something he just has let slide and hasn't really brought up, because that was a big part of Team Arrow too. It's like they've kind of grown apart because of everything that's happened to them. It does seem like they're not letting it interfere with their job like they were last season, because that kind of also messed with the team a lot, was just the whole keeping secrets and everything, and it just led to them breaking apart. They made everything seem like everything was slightly okay, but there were still, residual ramifications, obviously, from like the breakup and everything, in their teamwork and everything. And now it seems like they're good. Diggle brought up the fact of like, yo, like, do you think there's a possibility for you and Felicity? And Oliver was like, no. And then quickly after that, we see like, oh, she's actually moved on. Which the fact is, it makes you think Oliver doesn't know that. Especially interestingly enough that her new boyfriend is a cop too. But it doesn't seem like Oliver wouldn't know, and it does make you wonder how will that affect things in the future, because Oliver's not the best at expressing his feelings. So it'd be interesting to see like how he handles like, oh crap, like now I have to deal with this, and it's going to interfere with things, because it's like, because he doesn't really let people in, he's just going to be handling that on his own. So I don't know. I'm very super psyched for this season. I'm very interested to see what they do with it, with this new Team Arrow. Also, who we can only assume is our new bad guy this season, because I remember last season, like, season finale, people were talking about like they weren't going to do a magic user. Like there won't be another Damien Dark this season. It's just going to be a normal villain. We don't know who it is, but obviously they're dressed up like the Green Arrow, but they're not the Green Arrow, obviously. They even said it themselves, so who they are, what they want, I don't know. I'm very interested to find out. We also got a look at the new flashbacks this season. We have, because one complaint some people had about the flashbacks is the fact is that Oliver wasn't as dark as he should be. What I mean is every season he should be reverting more and more to the person he was in season 1, because it's like that's who he was at. We have to get him to that path, and it's like he's slowly getting there, but he wasn't fully there. And I know people have their complaints about the flashbacks too, but it's like, once again, I enjoy what I enjoy. I don't feel the need to explain it at that. I feel I do sometimes, like, go out of my way to explain it. It's like I simply like something. A lot of people don't. It doesn't bother me like the way it does other people, because it's just like, did I like it? Did I enjoy it? Was I entertained? Yes. Then it was fine. That's how I chop everything up. So I don't know. I feel like some people get a little too anal about certain things, but I mean, that's people, especially when it's something you care about, you're very passionate about. I'm passionate about this, but I'm just like that about everything I like, If I don't like it, I don't like it. But if I like something, I'm not saying things shouldn't be criticized or whatever. Like, when something doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it's like, to me, it's one of those things like, I didn't find a problem with it. Like, some people have a big problem with season 3 of Arrow. Personally, I didn't have a problem with it. Like, people are like, oh, this is bad, this is bad. I was like, really? I didn't think. I get where people are coming from, but nonetheless. The point I was making is the fact is that he is in Russia now, holding up the promise he made. I can't remember her name. It literally took me to like the second to last episode of the season to finally get her name down, and now I really don't remember it. But she's a lady that ended up dying because she got possessed by the whole totem thing, like all sucking up all that power, and it was the only way to kind of keep her in check was by killing her. And he made a promise because she basically was going to get off the island and handle this guy. I can't remember his last name. All I know is his first name is Constantine. Not to confuse him with the more supernatural Constantine, but this is a different Constantine that he made a promise to the girl that he basically do something about. And so he's in Russia, and he ended up running into Anatoly, who at first I was like, who the hell are you? And then it clicked. I was like, oh, right. You're one of the dudes Oliver helped off the island back in season 2, and only and you, during that whole like Slade situation. He was one of the people that he helped Oliver get away. So basically, which that was kind of another side of us seeing like, okay, he is starting to step up his like kind of like, willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. Because he was fighting that guy because he was trying to get an audience with the Constantine dude, and he just snapped the dude's neck, which, like I said, which got reflected in present day when he snapped that cop's neck. Especially how he ended up getting out of the zip ties was breaking his fingers. Dislocating his thumbs in particular, because that was kind of what Anatoly told him. He's like, okay, how about you just bring a knife next time? A knife? What kind of fun would that be if I did that? And so he needs to join up. He's going to join up with the Bratstva, which my understanding is kind of like a Russian gang, kind of like a Russian brotherhood, I think. So he's kind of being initiated in. It's his only way to get towards Constantine. And this guy's a very bad dude that Anatoly is like, you don't want to do this because he will kill you. This is not the way to handle things, but he can't talk Oliver out of it. So I'm very curious to see what actually unfolds. Like, is he going to be in Russia the entire time? I mean, because season 3, he was in Shanghai the entire time. So I'm very curious to see if Russia is going to be his like stop the entire way. Like, what kind of new developments is it going to be? One of those situations where, because every like season, it seems like basically the past is coming to rear its ugly head. Obviously, the first season was just, there's not too much that kind of really reflected into like the first season, like the first flashbacks compared to the first season, because it was just all about showing you who Oliver was, how he started to get to where he was. Second season, he dealt with Slade. Season 3, Mateo, and I can't remember her name. She's basically, she's Katana in this show. I just can't remember her real name. But finding out that whole situation and that playing a part in season 3's events. And then season 4, the whole like magic totems and everything, like how that came to be. It ended up in kind of tying in with the fact is, magic exists, and that's how, leading to him going up against Damien Dark. You can see the reflection. So I'm like wondering what in this season is going to reflect present day, because every flashback is trying to show Oliver basically facing something from his past. Essentially, his past is coming to rear its ugly head in some shape or form. Now that also makes me wonder, like, I'm hoping this show goes on a lot longer. I don't care how long this show goes on for. I hope it goes on for a while, but even if it's just like even just 1 or 2 more seasons, I am very curious to see what they would do in a future season. I know I'm so like jumping ahead because we're just starting the 5th season. I'm super excited to find out here, but I'm also curious to find out, like, say there is a 6th season, like, what would they do with the flashbacks? Would it kind of do a Lost thing? Spoilers for Lost, where it kind of does like a flash forward kind of thing, like, oh yeah, like this is here, but then we're also cutting to like the future and stuff like that. Or maybe like the final season of Lost where they did something different, which I won't spoil that for anyone that hasn't seen Lost, but someone who's seen Lost will be like, okay, I get what you mean by that, because they do something quite different in the final season. So like I said, overall, very exciting episode. I'm very super duper excited to see where they take things in Arrow this season. I'm curious to see if this kind of tone they've kind of brought up in the first episode, whether it will continue or not. In the flashbacks, maybe present day, I'm not so sure. I feel like he's going to tone down the whole killing and everything. So, yeah. But that's really all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.